Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to wrap up this week with some brand new music, this time coming at us from Alien Weaponry. They have a new music video that came out for their song 1000 Friends, comes off of their upcoming album, which drops sometime in March. The only thing I know about Alien Weaponry is metal, death metal, maybe. I don't know. Let's dive in, see what they're bringing to the table today. Oh! Harmony there. Is this the chorus? I think so. It'd be so quick though. Yeah. Wow, that was fast. So this is a larger section. Kind of gets a bit smaller here. Less vocals. This this guitar work feels lighter. And then we have this more driving section that brings it down. It's the breathing, the release into the tension. All right. Interesting how muffled that felt overall. This feels like it drew a lot out of that. Ooh, multiple variations on this final chorus. Alright. So metalcore. Why did I have like death metal in my head? Who am I thinking of if not Alien Weaponry then? I enjoyed this though. I'm a fan of metalcore. Lots of driving ideas, high intensity, high octane playing, beautiful beautiful vocal melodies and harmonies on top of that, and the occasional harsh for contrast. This is my kind of mixture of metal. But for analysis, there's not a lot going on here to really dive into. I think the main thing that I would want to focus on, especially since the verse is already so short as it is, and it's mostly just driving guitars and drums with a nice melody on top of it, is the chorus, which, as I mentioned, has this breathing, this push and pull. We have a little bit more of a a suspended guitar riff. The drums lighten up a little bit, and the vocals go for that harmonized higher melody. It kind of feels like we're floating for a second, and then the guitar riff comes in a little heavier. The vocals drop down quite a bit. They go for more of a chest voice, lower range. The drums put a little bit more intensity into it, and gives us this feeling of gravity. And the chorus just goes back and forth between these two. It's not quite as separated as some songs that I've heard do this, but it can still be felt. The chorus breathes. Everything else is, for the most part, just driving forward intensity all the time. And here we have a little bit of back and forth. We have some contrast going on there. The bridge gave us a breakdown. I thought that was fine. Not a big fan of breakdowns, but I mean it's core adjacent, right? This is metal core. You got to have a breakdown somewhere in it. And I think this was fine, especially for introducing a lot of space. The drums let up a ton here. And it really allowed for the vocals to switch to their harshes and come through and allow this to feel rather thin and anemic for a second before punching in with the pre-chorus. Punching with the rest of the bridge that takes us into the chorus, driving home this heavier sound from the guitars, from the vocals, from the drums, everything just kind of leaning into this. Even the bass, I feel punched up a little bit with some heavier accents. And this took us into the final chorus, which I'm kind of a little iffy on. I think the chorus by itself, which we'll get to in a second, is great. The lead up into it, though, the bridge dips things down, raises things up, dips things back down for a brief second, and then punches through on the chorus. I think, generally speaking, this can work. Rising and falling, we already have elements of that in the chorus as breathing. This idea works in concept, but in execution here, because the peaks and valleys are so far here, and because we're so rapidly moving between the two of them, it doesn't quite come off as natural as it does in the chorus. I think having one of those would have been fine, and unfortunately, as cliched as it is, it probably would have been the one where we drop down the first line of the chorus so we can punch back in, allowing us to have this contrast and dynamic of intensity. As I've said in the past many times, if you want your tens to feel intense, the word 10 is in there, you're going to have to contrast it. If your song is at 10 all the time, that becomes the norm. It feels like 5, you just can't go above it now. It might start out as intense, but the listener is going to adapt to it. It's not max volume anymore. And so bringing things down, even if it's for just a bar or so at the beginning of the final chorus, to then punch back up, one, is a fun way to get back into the chorus, to introduce it differently than we have in the past, but also it gives us that contrast so that we can get back up to that 10 and finish on a high note, even though we're not any louder or larger or more intense than we have been in any of the other choruses. This is a tried and true technique, and I really think that it's what should have been done here. It brings the lull at the beginning of the bridge into focus as the point that needed a little bit of work then. Although, as I said, the transition into the final chorus is quite cliche. It works, right? It's a trope because it's effective. And absolutely here it worked well. And it did work well. But if they wanted to go a little bit more expressive, to take things in a little different direction, maybe finding a different way to get back to the chorus and using that lull at the beginning of the breakdown would have been the way to go, because I do like the lull at the breakdown too. It really is just putting these things back to back. We're using this idea of a short moment of silence to allow punchiness in a larger section. It happens too closely, right? The thing with techniques is that if you use too many of them repeatedly in a short amount of time, they lose effectiveness with each repetition. And I think that's what happened here. And it made the whole chorus feel a bit lesser than, because we had literally just done this big punch up already. And I think that's a shame. And that's why I think I would rather have had just the one going into the chorus to allow the end of the song to feel as big as they wanted it to. And it does sort of course correct that a little bit. Not only do we have the unique entrance into that final chorus, but we also replace some of the first in the breathing, right? We have the suspended, and then the grounded, right? The suspended lines, melodically from the vocals, have a little bit more oomph to them. We have harmony on them. I think even at one point there's higher pitch than it was the first two times around. The call and response, this would be the response. This is the grounded area. We've swapped out the cleans, the chest vocal cleans, for harshes. And the second time around, we actually have a layered harsh and the chest clean. I thought it was very cool to hear all of these new ideas being worked into this. So it isn't just a standard final chorus. There's modification to it. We've taken something we've already listened to before and have slowly adapted it, or not slowly, moderately adapted it to feel fresh while still remaining the chorus, right? It's the hook. It's what you want people to remember, to get stuck in their head, so that they have to come back and listen to your music again. That sounds bad, that they have to come back. But it is, right? It's part of the psychology. You want your music listened to. It's your art. You want it out there. If you're writing a catchy hook, I mean, you're hoping that it gets caught in people's minds. So, yeah, I like the ending. It's great. We have the driving exit to the song too. It's a great ending that I feel is just diminished a little bit by the back-to-back use of the bring things down and then punch back up in such a short amount of time in the bridge. So yeah, I mean, this is a short analysis here, but I mean, the song has like two, three riffs to it. And dude, the verse too, man, it's just so short. I didn't even know we were in the chorus yet. We were. It's just like the first verse was like 15 seconds long or something, ridiculously short. It's just kind of I blink and you miss it, right? Usually I talk about ideas being blink and you miss it, a little ornamental concept, but no, this was a whole section of the song was just gone in no time. That was kind of surprising. And then the chorus is so long. I think by itself, it's not that bad of a decision, but when you have so much of a disparaging weight between the two of those sections, that's when it gets a little interesting to me. Let me find some lyrics to this. I'm pretty sure it's going to be about technology. There's lots of iPhones falling down and stuff on this, sleeping on an iPhone. So we'll do that real quick, and then we're going to wrap this video up. I don't want to be cynical about this. I don't think it's necessarily alien weaponry's fault that I have seen pretty much these exact statements. Maybe not the exact words or the exact combination of phrases, but I mean, the sentiment is, it's very common right now in alternative metal, in metalcore, even in some of the new metal resurgence that we've been seeing lately. There's a lot of popular styles of metal that are anti-social media. And they all say the same surface level thing. And I think if this was the first time I had seen this, I'd be a little bit more receptive to it. But it's just so common now that like I said, I'm approaching it a bit cynically, and I really don't want to. Because I still think the message needs to be delivered, even if it is in this sort of surface level read. It says there's been a deconstruction of social norms. We now have communication without a voice. We're defenseless to combat the wave from society that keeps you a slave. The chorus says, save yourself before it sucks you in, disconnected, living outside of your skin. You have 1,000 friends and yet you're all alone. The idea being that people live within their social media, and it's not just so much that we are living in the digital world where it's more important than the real world, but that we're actually we're being controlled by it. There's been so much research done into social media and its effects on psychology, especially talking about social media addiction, and even going so far as to look at what Meta has released in their own findings, that they said that the most engaging content is negativity. If you can create a negative response in somebody, you're going to see more, thumbs down clicks. You're going to see more engagement on comments. It's just, you're going to see more shares of it too. Hey, you have to see this. We really hate it together. It's stuff like that. That positivity just doesn't get shared. And so we've created a system, and when I say we, I just mean humanity. 99% of us have not created this. We had MySpace at one time. No algorithms, just keeping up with your friends, right? Remember when Facebook was just, you poked a friend and left a cool message on their wall? Yeah, we had that stuff in the web 1.0-ish days. I guess that was technically moving into 2.0. Um, and that's what's going on here. It says you have 1,000 friends, but you don't know any of them. You're still alone in real life, and this digital world that you're so attracted to is controlling your every whim. It's hijacked your emotions and your mind. The ads have told you what you need to have, what's going to make you feel better, what's going to fill that hole in your heart. Verse 2 says there's a dissolution of real life, only satisfied by seeing likes, creating reality through a screen of lies. I think that is one of the better lines in one of these songs, though, bringing up how easily it's been to spread misinformation in social media. It says we're unaware that as this happens, the real world dies. The bridge comes back to the effects on the self. It says you're numb inside your head, but the monster must be fed, degenerate, obliterate the writings on the wall, and you can't put up with this fall. It's just about how social media continues to act as a drug almost, where we need it every moment of our life, creates addiction, and so we become numb inside. Speaking about the monster inside that must be fed, I mean, that's a very common metaphor for drug addiction. So I like how it's kind of slipped in here, even though the addictive part is really only one specific line in here that we're satisfied only by seeing likes. I like how that element is worked into it. And again, if this is, like I said, the first time you're hearing a song with these lyrics, I think it does a good job of conveying the message that we need to move away from social media, that it is controlling everything more than we might even think. I'm a pretty big advocate against social media. I'm already a fairly online privacy censored person. This is very surface level to me, but it's also accessible. And I think accessibility is really important. And even though I mentioned at the beginning, I've seen this message dozens of times now from all sorts of bands, that's also important too, I think. You got to get the message out across as many vectors as possible. Maybe a fan of Alien Weaponry doesn't listen to any of those other bands. So, if this is how something clicks in them, they're like, oh, maybe I should delete Facebook today. Yeah, yeah, I'm glad the message is getting out then. So it's definitely a double-edged sword where I'm just not the audience for it. And I know I started off a bit cynical. I'm trying to come around and find the positivity in this though. And this is certainly it. The more people saying the same thing, especially for something as what I think as important as this, the better. That's going to wrap up my thoughts. Weaponry's 1000 Friends. What do you think of this track? Is there anything that stood out to you about it? Anything that I touched on but didn't say enough about? Maybe some things I missed that you want to bring up? Let me know all of that, as well as any interpretation, opinion, or perspective you have on this track. Put all of that in the comments section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. It takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. All right, that wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.